was just cleaning up some fabric scraps that appeared on my floor. Mysteriously. Anyways, I am about to embark on my next project, first project in the newly reorganized sewing space, so let's get right into it. For my first project in my new sewing space, I wanted to challenge myself. So I'm going to make a bag, which is something I have never tried before. Basically, I'm going to make a messenger bag that is styled off of this one with like the front flap and the shoulder strap, etc. But I'm going to use the dimensions of this bag since it's much larger and it's going to suit my needs better based on what I need to carry around with me. Okay, so after about an hour and a half, I'm ready with the pattern and it's in 3 pieces. So I've got, this first piece is the back of the bag and also the front flap. So this will this is what the pattern piece will look like when it's finished, when the bag is finished. And then this is the front of the bag, and this long woogly piece, this is one piece that combines the bottom and the sides of the bag. The reason I'm putting the bottom and the sides together is because I just think it's going to be a lot stronger that way, and also if I'm using recycled jeans, I mean, I've already got pretty long pieces of fabric, so in addition to strength, it's going to be easier. So let's go ahead and cut some fabric. Quick interruption here. So I got my big old stack of jeans and I grabbed my fabric scissors and I was ready to start cutting fabric, and I realized that I skipped 2 steps that I have to do. The first one is for the body of the bag. I want to use long pieces of denim as much as possible, so I realized that I needed a bottom of the bag as well so that I can have the front through to the back and the bottom all be just long pieces of jeans. That does mean that the panels on the side where like it curves, those are going to have to be separate, but that's okay because I kind of want this to be like patchworky looking anyways. I'm going to be using different shades of denim in this for different panels, but that also means that I need to actually divide up the panels, and I haven't done that, so I'm going to do that real quick, and then maybe the second time I start trying to cut fabric, it'll actually work. I've probably jinxed it now, but we're going to go for it. So here I'm just marking off the side panels because those won't end up going all the way through. Those will just, like that, will stop here. Here is the final panel breakdown. I hope you can see, sorry. So basically the edges are slightly smaller. They're, you know, just under 3 inches. And then the panels that are, there's one in the center and then one on each side, those are about 4 inches. So adding seam allowance, did some math here. So adding the seam allowance, the outer panels are going to be 3 3/8 of an inch wide, which is gonna be so much fun to measure. Just kidding, I have a quilting ruler. And then the inner and center panels are much easier. They're gonna be 5 inches wide each. The length of each panel, however, that's what might end up being a problem, because I added this all together and I got 41-inch long panels, and a lot of these jeans are donations from people who are much taller than me. However, we will see if this works. So the verdict is that no, I don't have enough fabric for doing 41-inch panels. I measured my longest pair of undonatable jeans. These have the crotch seam ripped out, and even these don't have 41 inches of usable fabric, so I'm gonna have to modify the design. I think I'm just gonna take it down a couple inches. I should be able to get away with 39 or maybe 38 inches for these, so oh well, back to the drawing table. I have redone my patterns. They are the correct size now. Let's go ahead and cut some fabric, and then I think I'm gonna be done for the day, because I have already spent several hours on this and I would like to go hang out with my cat. For tailor's chalk, I unfortunately only have white and blue, neither of which are going to show up very well on this particular pair of jeans, so I am just going to use Sharpie. Okay, so these are the 3 panels of recycled jeans that I'm going to be using for my bag. However, I now have to spend approximately 3 hours seam ripping each of these pockets off before I can cut them up into their correct size for the panels. So I'm gonna go sit with Angus while I do that. Wish me luck. Good noontide. I have successfully ripped some seams. I have also drawn some stitch lines, and I am finally ready to start sewing on this. So let's go ahead, pin, tack, and get to it. Today is going to be a lot of sewing. Afternoon. So I started this project on Sunday. It is currently Wednesday, and here's where we are right now. I've got my various portions of jeans seams together. So now, if you remember, this is the front, the bottom, the back, and the front flap all at the same time. So it's not, I didn't just like, I don't know, make like a weird jeans quilt. I promise this will look like a bag at some point. So the last step that I need to do before I can focus on cutting out the sides and getting those attached is the seam allowances are tacked down. I'm gonna go ahead and just hem those real quick, and then we're ready for the next step. Here's where we are right now. I have gone ahead and drawn kind of the outline of the different pattern pieces. I prefer to use pencil, but I had to use some tailor's chalk on the darkest shade of denim that I have here, and then over here, this is going to be kind of the cross piece. So what I'm gonna do is put it, instead of just stitching it up like just the sides, I'm essentially going to lay it across, and then the sides will come up, and then I'll, you know, stitch the pieces here into one line, which will help give the bag structure. But then also, this is kind of like where the knees of the jeans are, so I want to make sure that I'm reinforcing this fabric here, and having the extra layer of the bag go all the way across instead of just having one side and the other side should be really useful for that. Unfortunately, of course, I realized that there's this curve here that I wasn't thinking about, so I am going to have to figure out how to deal with that, but I think for right now, I'm going to see if I can take a little bit of a break and then maybe tack this on and make that a later problem. So I'll see you in a bit. So I took a break, and I realized something that you probably realized in the last clip, which was that my middle piece was way too short for what it actually needed to be. And during my break, I figured out why, which is, I really can't believe I did this, but like, so I was adding the sides to know how long I needed to cut this, and then I was like, oh, I also need to add the middle, but I kid you not, I literally added the width of the middle instead of this measurement, which is what it actually needed to do. So the piece that I cut was way too short, and the jeans that I was taking apart for this particular piece did not have enough fabric to have one piece all the way through. So what I did was I cut a second piece and I seamed them together in the middle, tacked it down, and now I'm finally ready to actually put the middle piece in. If you have ever heard the saying, measure twice, cut once, I measured 4 times here and the first 3 were wrong, so this is why it's important to take breaks during a project if you get stuck, because it's gonna help you think it through, as like I was trying to power through here and I kept being like, no. Take a break, eat something, get some water, come back to your project. I promise it'll make it better. Okay, so here is where we are now. I've got the side panel. I know it just looks like I added like another panel to the front, but this is the side panel, and I have that pinned and tacked onto one side of, this is going to be the front panel right here. And before I finish stitching this all the way down and around, what I'm actually going to do is bring the other side of the bag over, and I'm going to, one sec, and I'm going to sew them together so that I have the whole side of the bag done on this side before I turn it over, bring the panel around, and stitch it to the other side. Now, I know that sounds a little bit weird, hear me out. Basically, because this panel is going all the way under the bag, I'm going to have to finish my seams as I go, and that's going to be a lot easier if I do everything on one side first, and then bring the side panel around the bottom and do the second side. It's just going to be a lot easier to stitch that way, so that's what I'm going to do. So here's the side panel, and then this is what's going to be the back. I'm going to match these up, pin, tack, and stitch. Sir, excuse me. I am trying to film. Sir. Okay, thank you. I'm about 75% done with the main body of the bag. It is looking more and more bag-like all the time, and pretty much the only things that I have left to do are to attach the two parts of the bottom together, so the panel that goes all the way around front and back, and then the panel that goes sideways, I'm going to stitch those together. And then all I have to do other than that is go ahead and stitch the side panel on, and then I'm ready to add the straps and finish off the edges, which is awesome. So for the underside, what I'm doing first is tracing a chalk line, making sure that I do like a nice diagonal, having the cat invade my workspace, and then I'm throwing in a few pins and some tacking stitches before I start a very, very delicate running stitch. I've heard this also referred to as stab stitch, where it's just running stitch but you only take one stitch at a time, but I've also heard taking one stitch at a time referred to as running stitch. Since I'm going through 3 layers of denim, some people might expect that I would use a larger needle, but actually when you're doing this you want to use a much smaller needle because it's going to get through those thicker layers of fabric more easily. So what I'm going to be doing here, this is the underside of the middle panel by the way, is I'm actually going to tack it down twice. So the first one is going to be the second fold under. Sorry about the squeaking in the background by the way. Angus has discovered a squeaky toy. We didn't know that it squeaked, so again, I'm sorry. Anyways, so I'm going to be tacking this down twice. So first I'm going to be tacking down the inner edge here, just so that it doesn't like unravel and bunch up underneath the bag. And then I'm going to tack it down to the main panel of the bag so that it doesn't move around. So I'm actually going to wrap up this part of the project here, and please stay tuned for part 2 in the next week or so. There's just so much footage here. I want to make sure it's a manageable video to watch. Take care, have a great day.